Hi everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's live Q&A. Today we're going to be chatting about all things careers, employability and opportunity here at the University of Glasgow. So my name is Mark. I'm one of the international recruitment managers and I work within external relations here at the university. And I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleague Jess. Jess, could I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, thanks, Mark. My name is Jess Henderson and I manage the careers advising function within careers, employability and opportunity here at the University of Glasgow.
That's great. Thanks, Jess. Delighted to have you join us today. So I know, as ever, we have people tuning in from all across the world today. So in the live chat, please do let us know where you're joining from today. It's always great to see so many people from all across different parts of the globe joining us. So we'll be with you for about the next 30 minutes for those of you that are watching live, and you can submit your questions through the live chat, and we will do our best to answer as many of those questions as we can. So without further ado, I think we will get started because we've got quite a few questions already to get through. So the first one, Jess, perhaps a fairly obvious one, but just for everyone who's tuning in today who maybe aren't familiar with the work of the Careers, Employability and Opportunity Service at the university, could you maybe provide a quick overview of the work that you and the team do?
Sure, of course. So I guess we exist to support all Glasgow students with all things career and personal and professional development. So we've got some of our services shown on the slide there, but I'll just briefly talk through these. And the other thing to say is we are here to support Glasgow students right throughout their university degree as well as beyond. So all of our services are also open to our graduates for up to 2 years. So I think the first point is that we recognise that when it comes to questions about careers or jobs, often one of the most things that people are looking for is a person to speak to. So we have our fantastic peer career support team and they offer a drop-in service. You don't need to book an appointment. You can just go and drop in and ask them any questions that you have, and that's offered Monday to Friday between 9 and 5. If it's a question that they can answer, so they typically do things like CV reviews, help people with job searching or navigating our resources, they will be able to do that for you there and then. If it's something beyond their sort of remit, they will refer you to the appropriate staff or service within the university. So yeah, that is our sort of first port of call for most students. And they do also offer online appointments for students that might be at a different campus. If you saw the peer career support team and your inquiry was a bit more complex or you wanted help with thinking about your career planning more generally, then they would refer you on for one of our career coaching appointments. So we have a team of qualified careers advisors who are here to support all students with their career planning or sort of development planning as well. We have a lot of resources, so a few of the examples, some of which I'll talk about a bit more in detail throughout the session today, but we subscribe to a resource called Student Circus. So that is a resource aimed primarily, but not exclusively, at international students. So it advertises visa-sponsored jobs in the UK for graduates, but they also have lots of advice for working in different countries globally. We have our own Student Opportunities Hub, advertises part-time jobs and internships. I'll be talking a bit more about that. And we have a partnership with an organisation called Employability, which offers specialist advice and support for students with disabilities about navigating recruitment and selection processes. We also offer weekly workshops that we call masterclasses on a range of core career topics. So they might cover things like CVs, interviews, applying for postgraduate study, as well as many other topics. And then we have a whole programme of employer events that ranges from big careers fairs to employer panels or employer pop-ups around campus. And sort of much more besides. Some of those, like I said, I'll be talking a bit more about, but there's also, a lot of information on our website, which we'll be signposting you to later.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jess. That was really helpful. And I think what strikes me is just the wealth of support that's available. And I think also for students who might find themselves at sort of totally different stages in the journey. I know in my experience, perhaps a postgraduate student maybe joins, they're with us for a year, they're very focused on what they want to do. Perhaps an undergraduate who has 4 years of study ahead really is unsure of what their path will be. So I think, fantastic to see not only the wealth of support available, but just those different types of support at different stages of the journey as well. So thanks, a really helpful introduction, I think, to what we offer here at the university. So I'll move on to our second question then, and this is something certainly that I get asked about a lot from students, and it's thinking about part-time work. So while studying, students that are looking to kind of have that part-time job alongside their studies. So for a prospective student, what's the best way for them to find out about sort of part-time employment opportunities whilst they're studying?
So we have a dedicated service for this called the Student Opportunities Hub. So that's part of our careers service. And this covers both part-time jobs as well as internships. I'll talk a bit about the part-time jobs specifically here, but these are often part-time jobs on campus. So they might be working with services or teams across the university, or part-time jobs locally in and around Glasgow. So that would be my main bit of advice, is see what opportunities are on the Student Opportunities Hub, because particularly when we're sourcing jobs for those, we are looking for jobs which are flexible enough to be able to work around students' other commitments, like study commitments, etc. A lot of those will be in-person jobs. Sometimes we get hybrid or fully remote jobs as well. So that's a way of finding opportunities, and then we have a lot of support to help you secure the opportunities as well. I guess maybe particularly so for international students, or if a student hasn't had a part-time job before, you might not be familiar with how to put together a CV for like a part-time job, for example, or what you might need to do for a UK recruitment process. So again, our peer career support team can help with all of that, including, helping you put together a CV, but also reviewing it. And then, as I mentioned before, we do offer a range of masterclasses, and we offer a couple specifically aimed at both finding part-time jobs, but then also putting together a CV for a part-time job. I guess one thing it's worth noting here is that in the UK, a lot of part-time jobs that students do are often in sectors like kind of retail and hospitality. Those often provide the more flexible schedules that can fit around study requirements. Not exclusively, but those are some of the more common areas for students to find part-time work in.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jess. No, really helpful. And I think you're right, that flexibility piece can often be really important as students' timetables change, or at certain times of the year, their workload is much heavier. So yeah, I think you're right, those sectors and by extension, I suppose, roles around the university as well often provide that, that flexibility for students as well. So no, that was great. Thank you very much. Another thing that certainly that I often get asked about by prospective students and their families is thinking about kind of internship opportunities and work experience during your studies. I think we know that the world of work has become increasingly competitive in recent years, and as well as hopefully graduating from Glasgow with a fantastic degree from a world top 100 university, but often students are thinking about, okay, well, what else can I be doing? What other experience, what networks can I be building? So in terms of internship opportunities, could you maybe tell us about what those might be at the university and the sort of support available for those as well?
Yeah, of course. So again, we advertise internship opportunities on our Student Opportunities Hub. So any internships advertised there are exclusive for University of Glasgow students only. That means they're not being advertised elsewhere. So again, that's the first place to look, and we source a huge range of different kinds of opportunities there. So to give a couple of examples, our own peer career support team, those roles are offered out as internships via the Student Opportunities Hub. So it's students working those roles. Most internships through the Student Opportunities Hub are paid. Occasionally there'll be some with a voluntary organisation which might not be, but generally speaking they are. And Another thing I'll mention here as well, particularly around the paid thing, is each year a stream of this is called Find a Solution, where we work with charities and third sector organisations in Glasgow to source and advertise paid internship opportunities. And I'm mentioning that because those paid opportunities in the charity sector are quite rare, but it's a sector that lots of people are interested in. So for example, this year we advertised 40, just over 40 exclusive Find a Solution internships. So that's the Student Opportunities Hub, but beyond that, we advertise internships on behalf of lots of other companies as well, who might be advertising more broadly. And generally speaking, I think that point you mentioned, Mark, about internships and work experience is really important to remember, because lots of students come and see us and they're laser focused on internships. And it's really important to consider that there are loads of different ways to get work experience, not just through formal internship programs. So again, once you're here, if you're unsure about what are the things or how employers might view different kinds of experience, we can absolutely help you with that as well, beyond formal internship programs.
Thanks, Jess. No, that's great. And I think you're right. You know, it's I suppose it's just that engagement with the team really opens up awareness of those opportunities and how you know, the various things available could really help strengthen future applications or experiences and things like that. And also I think though that the fact that, you know, many of these opportunities are exclusive to the University of Glasgow as well, through really strong links that we have with industry and organisations, is obviously you know, a real positive thing for the institution as well. So thank you. Okay, so the next question we have, so I suppose we've talked about part-time work opportunities, we've talked about, you know, kind of internships or work experience during studies. So this question we'll maybe start to think about sort of post-study and graduation. So in what ways can the Career Service support students in finding work once they have finished their studies and once they've actually graduated from the University of Glasgow?
Cool. So, I mean, I guess the first thing I'll say here is we really recommend that students engage with us right throughout their degree. I very much appreciate that if somebody's starting like a 4-year undergraduate degree, it feels like a long way off. However, you will make it a lot easier for your future self if you start engaging earlier, picking up on your previous point there, Mark. Even if it's just coming and having a chat with us, it might be help getting part-time jobs. You know, employability and your own development, and actually the development of your own career ideas and interests, is a developmental process. You know, sometimes a student might come to university with a very clear idea of what they want to do afterwards. Often that actually changes throughout the process of things they get involved in throughout university. So we offer lots of support throughout your degree. That might be coming along just to a careers fair, just to have a wander around early, but and that skills and confidence is a developmental process as well. So that's the first thing I would say. In terms of actually the, you know, specifics of getting a job once you've got to the end of your degree, as I touched on earlier, you can continue to access all of our support for up to 2 years after graduation, should you need to. So that includes all of the services that I've talked about so far. A few things to highlight here, you know, is one-to-one guidance, as I touched on in the overview earlier. That includes CVs and application reviews, interview preparation, practice interviews, support with assessment centres, understanding recruitment processes, applications for further study, etc. And crucially, I guess, that personalised advice. All our workshops and events are also still available to you after graduating. And yeah, just to sort of, I guess, repeat that point, you can access full support for up to 2 years after graduation. All of our appointments are available both in person and online. So if you graduate and are no longer in Glasgow, you know, you can access that one-to-one support online as well.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jess. No, I think fantastic advice there. And, you know, I would echo it. I think that engagement early in the journey, it's never too early to start, you know, attending a masterclass or wandering around a careers fair, as you say, to help build confidence, to start maybe building networks. If I reflect on my own experience, I left all of that to the very last minute. Was realised that graduation was upon me and thought, what am I going to do next? So I would say, do as I say, not as I do. And my advice would be, that the earlier the better. It's only going to, as you say, build those skills and networks that will, hopefully come in, really useful when you are at that position of sort of having a clearer idea of what you want to do. So that's great. Thank you. I suppose linked to some of what we touched upon there was thinking about those networking and skills related events. And I know you kind of touched on some of this in your summary, but was there anything specific that you wanted to kind of mention around those sort of networking opportunities and sort of sessions to develop kind of particular skills that students can attend?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Mark. So I've mentioned fairs, I think, in passing, but just to say a bit more about that, we organise several kind of careers fairs or big careers events throughout the year. So we have various big fairs happening in semester one, so throughout September and October. Some of those are general and some of them are more sector specific. And those are great opportunities just to explore different industries, meet a range of employers, and really just start to kind of get a sense of what opportunities are available, even if you're not actually actively looking for an opportunity at this stage. One thing I particularly wanted to mention here, because it happens early, is Future Fest. So this is our sort of one of our flagship events. It is scheduled this year for the 23rd and 24th of September. And it's, so it's like a 2-day kind of multi-venue careers fair, but with a bit of a festival vibe. So we do try to make our events like engaging, fun as well. So it's not all just like, stressful and thinking about careers and stuff that might be a bit scary. We want to make them engaging and enjoyable events as well. So there'll be lots happening at Future Fest. As I said, beyond careers fairs and our big events, we have a lot of employer activity on campus. So that might be things like employer panel sessions. Often employers are just doing like a pop-up stand around campus. Sometimes we have employers coming in to do mock interviews. Sometimes that might be central or built into a specific program. Some programs will have employers engaged in things like guest lectures or setting live briefs. So there's a lot more opportunities to hear directly from and interact with employers over and above just our big careers fairs. And then, as I've touched on before, our masterclasses, most of those are very interactive. So we give you the opportunity to try things like have a go at experiencing an assessment centre. What's that actually like? Or have a go at putting yourself in the recruiter's position and review some fictional CVs or practice, interviews with fellow students. So we really try to build on like those experiential opportunities into our masterclasses. There'll be more or less of that depending on the topic, but yeah, that's a feature that we try to build in, particularly to our in-person sessions.
Thanks, Jess. No, really helpful. And I think again just underlines just the sort of wealth of activity that's going on in this area, and just how much there are for students to dive into during their time with us at the university. So that was great. Again, this is something that you touched on a little bit earlier, but I suppose just to get a little bit more detail. Often students are wondering about that one-to-one element of getting that really bespoke advice and guidance. So could you maybe explain a little bit about sort of the opportunities that students have to meet with a careers advisor one-to-one as well?
Sure, yeah. So there's quite a lot of text on this slide now, but essentially we offer, I guess, a 2-tier service. So our first port of call are our peer career support teams. They're fantastic. They are fellow students. A lot of them will very much be able to understand and relate where you're coming from. They are comprehensively trained. They have 2 weeks of full-time training on everything that they need to know for the job. So like I said, they operate just a purely drop-in service. So if you've got any questions at all, and if you're not sure whether it's a question for them or somebody else, we always say start with them, because they'll either be able to answer it or they will refer you on to the more appropriate staff. A lot of what they spend their time doing is things like CV reviews or reviewing cover letters, applications, offering support with, finding job opportunities or experience opportunities, how you can find and apply to those. So they operate on, like I said, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, and they do sort of drop-in basis. So you don't need an appointment. They're just based in the Fraser building. You can do up to 20 minutes with them. And then crucially, they are trained to be able to appropriately triage as well. So if through their conversation with you, they feel that your inquiry actually needs support from one of our qualified careers advisors or even another member of staff, they will make that referral for you. So to talk a bit then about our career development consultants. So as I said, these are all fully qualified, professionally qualified careers advisors, and they offer one-to-one appointments as well. These need to be booked in advance. You can, once you're a student here, you can either make the booking yourself. We have an online platform to make those bookings, or if you've seen a peer career supporter, they can also make that booking on your behalf. So they are really useful if you want a bit more sort of guidance around your career ideas, or if you're maybe know what you want to do but aren't sure how best to get there, or want help putting together a bit of plan for how you want to develop, all of those things. And they offer 45-minute appointments. Like I said, they offer a mix of online and in-person appointments. Because those appointments are a bit longer, we don't have as much availability of those. So we do sort of put a limit of up to 5 appointments per student per year. Often students don't need that, they just need 1, and that's fine. If somebody has particular needs that are maybe a bit more complex, then and the advisor thinks they might benefit from additional appointments, they can do. But just in terms of keeping that equity of access to them, it's why we kind of limit it. But yeah, comprehensive support for all stages of your career planning, basically.
Thanks, Jess. No, I think to see it mapped out like that is really helpful. As you say, the different stages, whether it's just a quick drop in with a question ahead of submitting a CV, or as you say, those more detailed conversations. And I think the peer-to-peer element is often invaluable as well. You're perhaps speaking to a student who has been through that same journey, perhaps a year or two before, who can share their own experience, whether that's specific to to being in Scotland and our context, and or perhaps viewing as an international student. So yeah, I think that wealth of opportunity, regardless of where a student is in their own personal journey, I think is great to see. So thank you. So I think we're running a little low on time, but we've probably got time for 2 more questions. So the penultimate one for you is, we've had a question from an international student who is keen to remain in the UK to try and find employment after they graduate. Would you have sort of any advice that you could share, particularly for those international students who maybe want to remain in the UK?
Yeah, absolutely. This is something which is of interest to many international students. So we do offer some bespoke resources specifically for this. We have one of our masterclasses specifically covers it's a bit of everything you need to know if you're in this position navigating the UK market as an international student. I mentioned earlier Student Circus, the resource we subscribe to. So that does advertise jobs in the UK which are able to sponsor skilled worker visas, so that's the thing. And then we work closely with our international support team on this. So they're the team, if you're not aware already, they can support you with kind of visa advice. So it's worth me clarifying at this point. Us in the careers team, we're not qualified immigration advisors, so we can't give any individual advice about, post-study work visas or any of the rest of it, graduate route visas. We'll cover the general points, but if you want individual clarification on that, then the international student support team are there to help you. And we do also we've recently kind of improved this part of our web pages specifically for international students. So that's being shown on your screens now, and that's really comprehensive. It has lots of advice. That's where you can access things like Student Circus. You won't be able to do that until you're enrolled here, but a lot of the information on that site is open access. I think a couple of things I would say to international students, if you are wanting to work in the UK after your studies, is and particularly if you're only coming on a 1 year like master's program, I would really recommend you look at some of this information now. Recruitment timelines might be different to what you're used to. Recruitment practices will often be very different to what you're used to. And obviously, once you actually land in Glasgow, you'll be dealing with enrolment and registration and getting stuck into your course. And again, postgraduate masters is quite intense. So if you can take some time now just to research and familiarise yourself with these things before you arrive, you will be starting from a better position when you actually arrive in Glasgow.
Absolutely, Jess. Yeah, and I think that chimes with what we've said previously, isn't it? About just that the earlier the better, really, but while acknowledging that, as you say, a 1 year master's is intense. You're arriving in September, you're in this new environment, you're meeting new people, there's lots to navigate, but this is an important part of that puzzle. I suppose just one thing for me to add, so, you've really helpfully focused on, everything the University of Glasgow offers. I think just one thing for me to flag that often students find quite helpful as well is the fact that the Scottish Government have launched kind of Scotland's migration service. So just a very quick sentence from me for everyone tuning in. This is something sort of bespoke to Scotland, whereby this service is providing, additional advice and guidance for international students around routes to remaining in Scotland post-study. But I think also crucially providing advice and guidance to employers in Scotland as well about how they would navigate employing an international student and the kind of skilled worker route that you referenced, Jess. So I think just something to highlight there that is offered here in Scotland that perhaps isn't replicated in other countries or other parts of the UK. But again, there's information about all of that that students can dig into. Okay, final question. So I think many of the students who are joining us live today will be coming to Glasgow very soon and will be starting their studies with us when term begins in September. So I suppose, do you have any sort of final words of wisdom that you would like to share just in terms of any must-dos that students should be thinking about when they arrive in Glasgow? We've already mentioned there that it can feel intense. There's lots to be thinking about, but from that kind of careers and employability perspective, is there anything that you would suggest students should definitely be focusing on when they arrive with us here in Glasgow?
Yeah, I think firstly, I'll try and keep this brief, but Access Glasgow Careers, that's our platform. So we advertise everything that I've spoken about today, basically part-time jobs, internships, all our events and appointments are advertised through Glasgow Careers. You won't be able to log into that until you're fully registered student at Glasgow. And for international students, that does include having done your individual visa appointment. So I'm just mentioning that because there might be a slight delay. FutureFest, I've mentioned 23rd and 24th of September. Again, that covers everything from part-time jobs, internships, graduate jobs, and lots more. Like I said, it's designed to be quite fun. So it's a kind of low pressure environment. Even if you just come and have a quick wander around, it gives you a great sense of kind of what opportunities either now or in the future might be. We do send a weekly newsletter out to students, so do kind of keep an eye out on that. In that we'll share useful articles. We try to keep it quite short, but also a few live opportunities, so part-time jobs, internships, and graduate jobs. And if you just get used to sort of opening that and having a quick scan through, that will ensure it stays coming through to your inbox rather than getting filtered into clutter or something. And yeah, if you've got any questions about anything, drop in and visit the peer career support team. So those would be my career tips. I think beyond that, I would just say, make the most of it. University is a fantastic time. Actually, just even if you don't go anywhere near careers, which of course I'd recommend you do, but even if you don't, be curious, get involved. There's so many fantastic opportunities, and actually getting involved, meeting different people, will really help a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about and help you develop skills which employers value as well, even if it's not a specific careers event or opportunity.
Thanks, Jess. What a great way to bring today's session to a close. I think that was a really great summary and advice for students who are joining us to think about. So thank you. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's session. That's all we've got time for. For everyone who joined us today, thanks very much. I hope you found it useful. Thanks to you, Jess, for taking the time out of what you've shown is a very busy team that you're part of. So thanks for taking the time out to share lots of really useful information with everyone today. So we really appreciate it. For everyone joining us, as Jess mentioned, please remember to check out the web pages. There's so much useful information on there. You can also follow the service on Instagram. So it's just UofG Careers is the handle. So a really good way as well there to find out what's happening and what's going on. So please do follow the team as well. So that brings today's session to a close. So thank you very much everyone for joining us. It was great to see so many of you here, and we hope to welcome you to the University of Glasgow very, very soon. So thanks very much for joining us. See you soon.